Hello.
Good morning. This is Kent and Renee Miller. Today we're going to cover chapters 4, pages 77 to 79, Vortexes and Triangulations from the book called The Augmentation of Man, A Study in Renaissance.
So we're continuing on. This chapter is all about communication, so spiritual communication for the specific purpose of expanding consciousness to mere universal consciousness, the way that the rest of the universe sees truth, not especially what we have been promoting as far as information and the human race in the recent past. So we're trying to take people back to the way that it was originally intended.
Okay, well, define vortex to begin with, which is an opening.
The vortex, we're being told, is an opening for vibrational atmospheres to pass through to the other side, to a spiritual communication. So
define atmosphere.
So atmosphere would be the area or the gas within a specific area. Mm-hmm. So as we've mentioned before in our previous videos,
gases around the earth you're talking about.
Right. And so communication travels on these gases. It has to do with the electrical charges, the ionic field, the plasmic lines. So communication creates a vibrational reaction within the gaseous atmosphere, and it creates strings, and those are the plasmic cords that the communication travels on.
So the events within an area all events give off a vibration. Everything gives off a vibration.
Even our thoughts.
Right. So the vortices transport these vibrations. And it could be a prayer, it could be your wants and desires, it could be a lot of things you can put in that category.
Including our misperceptions, our misinterpretations. That has to be communicated to the other side so that a plan can be made for correction of those misperceptions.
Well, then the vibrations are like throwing pebbles into a pond or a rock or whatever. Everyone has done that at one time or another in their life, and you can see how the little waves go outward and outward and outward. Well, vibrations work the same way inside of vortices.
Anywhere, wherever there's a vibration created, then that vibration travels outward in rings.
And on each end of the vortice is a concave or convex arch, which hold this vibration within itself with subvortices on the side. How does that work?
So as the vibrational event occurs, so it can be our thoughts, an event can be anything, anything that occurs. So it can be an actual event in the area. So you have
just an event with
any sort of an event. It can be a thought. It can be a communication. So that travels out in rings, and eventually it hits this arch, and that is creates the opening to the vortex. That arch causes the vibration to start to travel in a circular counterclockwise rotation, and then the vibration starts to spin and it enters the vortex. But it's not just
more than one type of energy within that vortex.
Yeah, so it doesn't limit one event at a time to enter the vortex. It all can pass through at the time of the occurrence. And so how do we keep each vibrational event intact and within itself so that it reaches the other side not mixed with all the other events. You know, we're talking about vibration here. So as it travels outward in rings, and the other events also travel outward in rings, it's kind of like dropping rocks into a pond all at the same time in a relatively close pattern, and each one is creating rings, and as those rings reach each other, they limit the event or the continued travel of the rings. As that vibrational expression continues to go out, it kind of stops it. So, and then those vibrations start to intermingle. They start to combine and mix. So within the main vortex, there are subvortices, and those are activated and start to push out, and they keep each event vibrationally contained within itself, so that each event reaches the other side as a communication of the event without being diluted or confined by other events.
So with that there's always vibrational residue left by all vibration. It's like anything leaves a residue. And this residue in many places can be stronger than others, but humans detect these vibrations.
So at the site of a vortex, people can often pick up the vibrational residue left by the passing vibrations going through this vortex. And they feel it and they sense it. And a lot of times we put the
sensation of feeling.
Yeah, and we name it by saying it's sacred because of what we're feeling.
Yeah.
But we're being told by the ancients that it's not sacred, that really nothing is sacred except one place, and that is called the universal vortex. So what is the universal vortex? It is the vortex that is created for communication specifically between the creator and the ancients. This does not include masters. Remember, masters have only mastered the earth realm, okay, or any other specific realm. So earth is very young. Its inhabitants, for the most part, are very young. Our understanding is very young. And so, therefore, our masters have only basically mastered our world and our level. And they are moving on to other learning fields. So that universal vortex is only between the creator and the ancients, who are ancient preceptors or teachers of the creator, and not ancient humans.
So I'm going to define triangulation. Triangulation actually creates a deviation in the molecular flow from point to point.
So we're talking about a difference between the molecular flow between 2 points versus the molecular flow between 3 points. And so as we add a third point in, it changes.
Which would be a triangle.
Right. It's a triangulation. It changes the molecular flow, excites the molecules in that area, and causes them to start traveling in a counterclockwise direction.
A faster movement?
It is a faster movement. They're excited particles, and they start traveling in a vortexical type of movement.
Which magnifies the intensity and actually creates various geomagnetic patterns as the pattern increases in intensity.
And so the vibration that's created when this occurs has various levels. So we're talking about a molecular intensity of or excitement of movement of particles, and it creates various vibrational levels. Each vibrational level has its own geometry, and
it should be a geomagnetic force.
And it can be used as a geomagnetic force. So this geometry, this vibration, can be used for various specific purposes. And what those purposes are, we only know of one at this point. So Yes, we understand that there is a power of three. Threes are mentioned throughout all these ancient books, and they are used for specific purposes, the triangulating, but we have yet to really discover how that works. The one way that, the one item that we do know that the application can be used for is meditation.
And using the triangular theory, meditation of 3 will give you an insight and introduction to a higher level of meaning and understanding the communication. With that said, take caution in meditating with 3, because things can take place that you don't understand. So you have to be willing to understand and open your parameters to that level of understanding.
And remember, those misunderstandings can cause us to develop a belief system about something that is incorrect. So it all is relative to where we're at in our base level of understanding. Take things slow. It's step by step. We've been told step 2 does not come before step 1. So it's important to take the time to develop your basic level of understanding as your foundation and build upon that. So when we get into meditation, this can be used for those who are having difficulty accessing information for understanding about the self and progressing from there into communication for higher understanding.
This information that can be accessed, if you want to use it for the betterment of humanity, then you probably end up accessing it. If you want it to do for self acknowledgement and self correction of financial being, you probably will not get.
You're not going to get anything
level, if
high.
anything at all.
So
Okay.
anything that's egotistical, egocentric, materialistic, is only going to attract somebody an entity that's
It's a lower
willing to
level.
deceive.
Right.
So this really needs to come from the heart, and it needs to have the higher intention of a higher level of consciousness.
Okay. With that, I'd like to say thank you for watching. We hope you end up picking up the book, because it's a long-term book. It's not something you read overnight or 1 week. You keep it for years and refer back to it for further communication and education of understanding. And with that, I'd like to say have a great week.
And the book, again, is The Augmentation of Man, a Study in Renaissance. And we're not listed on it as the authors. It's the ancients and professors of higher realms of understanding. And you can always access our previous blogs on our website, verdience.com. Take care. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
God bless.